Catherine, how did you become a therapist? Like, how did you choose this path for yourself as a professional?
Yeah, I actually thought I was going to go into medicine. I thought I come from a family of nurses and a couple of physicians that all worked in trauma. And so that was the path that I had planned for. And I went on to become a certified nursing assistant. And when I was working in the emergency room, I found myself much more concerned with how people were processing and handling the experience that brought them to that hospital than the cast I was putting on or the blood that I was drawing. And it didn't take very long to recognize that that's really not what people wanted me to be focusing on in that particular role. So I decided to look into what it was that would allow me to connect with people who were going through these experiences that were either out of the norm for them or even experiences that would be out of the norm for others to go through. And that led me to a counseling degree with a specialty in trauma. I also come from a military background. My parents are both in the service, so I had thought that I would also go on to work with veterans. But just the way that the path unfolded, I got involved in crisis work for a very long time and then recognized that I also wanted the opportunity to have follow-up. Crisis work is very short-term, and you don't get a lot of that follow-up to see what people went on to do with that experience and how it impacted themselves and their lives and their relationships and all of those types of things. So I made the transition into work with trauma and have been able to do that in various capacities, ultimately, which has led me to Integrative Trauma Treatment Center. What about you?
Well, I got into the field on accident, sort of similarly. I had started I'd worked with people with developmental disabilities for a long time, and I really loved that work. That was sort of the gateway into the field, and I had thought that maybe I wanted to, similar to you, I wanted to go into medicine, the medical side, like occupational therapy or physical therapy or something like that. But you had to have, for occupational therapy, you had to have an undergrad degree in social work, so I got my bachelor's in social work. And I realized that I really like to think about things like social problems through a macro lens, but then I want to work with people on a micro level. So being able to acknowledge the social variables that influence the way people behave and the way their relationships develop, and all of these factors that influence our lives that are not necessarily within our control but still are relevant, was really interesting to me. Like, I loved sociology and hearing about or learning about just social systems and systemic thinking. It just felt very natural for me. So I got my bachelor's in social work, and as I did that work, I volunteered at the Sexual Assault Resource Center and created a curriculum for school-age children that was trying to teach how to prevent sexual assault. So, it was a psychoeducational thing that I had written, and I thought that was really fun. And also working for or volunteering for the Sexual Assault Resource Center was very rewarding work in and of itself. So I learned at that point that I really loved crisis work also, and I loved mental health. So then I continued on and pursued my master's in social work, and I knew right out of the gate that trauma was what I was interested in. That was an easy decision for me. So, and then after that, I ended up working in private practice after having been in hospital settings for a while, and I did that for 5 years, and the 5 years in private practice taught me that there are people who have experienced trauma that need help outside of, psychotherapy for healing. Like, the body is part of the recovery process, so why are we not including it in that? So I created Integrative Trauma Treatment Center in 2010, which is still in operation today, and is the clinic that Kalos is built on and built around, I would say, because we are so passionate about trauma-informed approaches and expanding options and voices and opportunity, et cetera. But out of ITTC, ITTC was born in effort to provide more expansive and integrative services to people with trauma, and also alternative ways to heal.